Yeah, good morning, students. In the previous class, we had a discussion on different functions, types of functions, as well as what is meant by function prototype and how we can call the functions in a main function. And the syntax, what we have to follow to define a user defined function. So, that we discussed in the previous class. Now, in this classroom discussion topic, so we are going to had a discussion on different categories of the functions, and these categories of the functions are based on two important characteristics. One is if the function is taking the parameters or not, and another one is the function is returning a value to the calling program or not. Function returning a value with a to the calling program or not. Fine. So now I would like to share my screen. So is my screen is visible? I hope it is visible. So this is what the today's topic for discussion: categories of user defined functions. So lecture level outcomes, or upon completion of this lecture, students will be able to develop the code in C using different categories of user defined functions. So what are the different categories or types of functions? So a function may or may not accept any arguments. It may or may not return a value. So based on this, okay, may or may not accept any arguments, or may not return any value. Based on this, the functions can be categorized into four different types. One is function without arguments without return value, function without arguments and with return value, function with arguments and without return value, function with arguments and with return value. So whatever the category of the function it may be, so you can develop the code in any of this category. If you want to pass the data, you will pass as an argument. If the function wanted to return the value to the calling program, you can return that value. Otherwise, you can display the value in the function body itself. So the function with no arguments but no return value. So void main here, if you take here function, so this is a function fun1, so there is no arguments, okay, there is no return value, so we are not passing any data to the function 1. So we are performing some task and then we are not returning any value to this main function, no return value. So this is the first category. Second category is function with no arguments and returns a value. So that means, so we are calling a function without passing any argument. So no arguments are here. Okay, without passing any argument, we are calling the function. But here what we are doing, we are returning a value b, we are returning that. So the function is returning some value. So that is the reason we are assigning the function call statement to a variable which is of type, what value it is returning, integer. So the a variable must be integer type. So this is what the function with no arguments, no return value. Third category is that function with argument and but no return value. Here we are passing the argument to a function. In the call statement, we are passing some argument a. So to receive this argument a in the function header, you are declaring a variable here, a parameter int f. So the a value is get copied into this f. So now we will use that f value in this function code. So there is no return. So the function is not returning any value to this main. Similarly, fourth category is function with argument and return value. So we are passing a value to a function. So the function is receiving that value in the form of f. doing some computation, and then it is returning some result E. So that E will be cached into this B variable. So the function call statement is assigned to a variable. So these are the four different categories of functions. So now we will see that examples for each of this type. Okay, so fact is a function passing an argument integer, but it is not returning any value. Fine. So enter a number n factic of n. So we are calling the function fact function. So here we are passing that n value in the form of n itself here. So this n is different from this n. So there are two different memory locations, two different storages having the same name. So this is what we are calling it as actual argument, and this is what we are calling it as a formal argument. So this is a formal parameter, and this is an actual parameters. Okay, the parameter which we have given in the function call statement, these are called it as actual arguments. Okay, so the actual arguments are the arguments which are given in the function call statement, and in the function header whatever the parameters we are given, they are called as a formal parameters. So we are computing the factorial of this n value, and we are displaying that factorial here in the function body itself. Fine. So we are not returning that. Suppose here if you take another example here, so where we are trying to write a code for checking whether the given number is a prime or not. So we are writing a check prime. So it is going to take some integer value n, and it returns a integer. Okay, so prime, if it returns prime is equal to 1, the number is a prime. Okay, else the number is not a prime. So if it is a prime number, we are returning 1, otherwise we are returning 0, for example. So this is a function code here what we are using. Okay, so this is a function code check prime. So int n, so how do we check it? So if n1 percentage I equal to 0, then we are returning 0. If it is not a prime, we are returning 0. If it is a prime, we are returning 1. Fine. So this is actual logic which we have written in the check prime code. So this is another example where we are defining the global variables and local variables. So this is a function here, int x comma y global declaration. So this is a swap is a function where we are swap, we are taking here the int t, and t equal to x, x is equal to y, y equal to t. So values before the swap, what is the x and y values, and values after the swap, we are printing x and y values, we are printing here. So this is the main function, we are reading x and y values in the main function, and then we are calling the swap. Okay, so then return 0. So what will happen here if you see that? Okay, so now coming to this lecture level practice problem here. So you have to develop a C program to check given year is a leap year or not. So the category of the function what we have to use here is that without return types, and a function with argument and return type. So both the versions of the code you have to write a function without no arguments, without return value, and a function with argument and return type. Fine. So this is what we are calling it as the lecture level practice problem. Fine. So these are the further readings. You can refer this particular user defined functions in this particular textbook, Programming in ANSYS by E. Balaguruswamy. Fine. So thank you one and all. So any doubts you have, so you can. Okay. So thank you.